My name's Reese Baker. We are in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in a little tiny area in an urban environment. And this is a place I've been working on for about 20 years to implement as much permaculture as possible. And today we're going to walk through a couple of different water projects that we have going on here. Right here, we take all of our kitchen water and everything comes down through here, and it's an extremely simple passive system. Has a little bit of a grade that flows down through this area. We have a whole bunch of different culinary herbs lined into this little area. And we also have dead elm trees. Elm trees happen to be invasive and non-native in Santa Fe. I'm using elm trees to try to grow a whole different slew of different fungi, edible fungi mainly. So these are actually plugged with oyster mushrooms. So the Greywater is growing mints and lemon balms and feverfew and all these different herbs. We've got strawberries, and then we have the oyster mushrooms to come up seasonally. And this is just sort of an ephemeral creek that runs through the property. You could think of it that way. I like to think of everybody that has a pressurized water source in their house. That water goes somewhere when we're done with it. So everybody has an ephemeral creek running through their property, whether it's in a pipe or whether it's accessible to the landscape. So the other water project we have going on here is the rainwater from our roof. So we've directed from the canales, we have all this water that's coming around to this one main tank system. And these big boys are about 550 gallons. This is an extremely basic, simple water catchment system. So these two tanks are linked together below ground here so that they'll fill and empty simultaneously. We've got these set up with gate valves because when it freezes in the winter, there's a place for that water to go when the ice starts to form, because we don't have that, then it tends to get inside the little holes of the ball valves and it'll break and destroy all your plumbing. And then these tanks will overflow into a cistern that you're actually standing on right there that's about 2,000 gallons. From there, we'll pump the water out into the drip irrigation so that we use rainwater whenever we have it. And then when we don't have rainwater, we use city water to supplement. This is the main drain that comes out of the house and goes to the city sewer. So any water that gets into this, we've lost to the system. And this is toilets, and pretty much only toilets at this point. You'll see that these larger lines from the toilets drain, go into the main line that goes out. But the sinks and the showers come from this upper line. This is a Greywater line from the sink and the showers. And that connects to the other sinks and the showers in the laundry room here. And so this whole line is up above the main drain so that we can get this to flow. If we need it to, it can come down and go into the wastewater system in case we had to use a chemical or something. Otherwise, we have it valved here, and all that gray water flows down into this filter. And this filter acts as a sediment trap, and it traps all the lint and all the stuff that comes out of the laundry. And that way we have a clean point where we can access the water so that we can keep all the stuff from going into the Greywater wetlands. So at this point, we go through the wall and out into the Greywater wetlands. So we were just under the house and we were seeing how the water came out from the sinks and from the laundry. Goes into this little system here that has been lined with a 9mm pond liner. And all the water enters this high side from the bottom, moves up and across to the low side into the pond. And so this is a pre-treatment where all the water in this area is anaerobic, and all the oils from our skin, all the soaps, all those things can have a pre-digestion through the bacterial colonies that live on the roots of these plants. And then the water goes into the aerobic pond environment, and all this water is constantly being circulated and oxygenated. So we have a nice aerobic environment here that the fish can live in, and as it starts to warm up, we start to get amphibians and all kinds of different little snakes, and the birds are chirping and drinking out of the creek in the mornings. And then we definitely have some of the raccoons and skunks and little visitors that like the pond as well. So it's really quite an exciting little oasis in the middle of the desert. If you have this water source, you bring in all kinds of different animals and wildlife. These plants are super interesting because they're capable of living in anaerobic environments and aerobic environments. And they have these specialized cells in their roots called aerenchyma. And so they actually can pull oxygen and hold oxygen in an anaerobic environment and make sure that their roots are always respiring and doing their metabolism that they need to make energy. The Greywater wetlands gets turned off in the winter and all the water that would normally go into the wetlands is diverted into a pumice wick system that is underneath between the apple tree and the cherry tree here. But the pond itself stays running all winter, and it's been running even in 16 below temperatures that we've had here in Santa Fe. So if we can keep the water moving, it's impossible for it to freeze solid all the way. And so we'll get little ice dams and things like that, but the pond will ice up, but it's always capable of staying liquid, which is very important.